That's why they call me bad company. I can't deny bad company.
All right, welcome to the W2W review. I am the Knight, and joining me from his LA studios, as always, is the Raider Pirate. What's going on, Pirate?
What's going on, Raider Nation?
All right, Raider Nation, today is Friday, October 28th, 2016. We are geared up. We are ready for Tampa Bay. This is going to be our Tampa Bay preview show. Pirate, starting with you, what are the numbers looking like for this week's matchup?
I think the first thing we probably want to look at is, who's not going to be available, who is available. At this point, it looks like on our side, Vidal Alexander's questionable, Andre Holmes is questionable, Tywan Jones is questionable, Trey Wick, I believe McGee is going to be out. And then on Tampa's side, Robert Ayers is questionable, their center, Joe Hawley. Gerald McCoy is also questionable, so that's a bit of a good thing for us, even if he's slowed down a little bit. Like Jack Del Rio said, this is one of the best players in the league, so if you can slow him down even just a little bit, that's a good thing. And then Clinton McDonald. Now, if you take a look again at these two football teams, I think we have just a slight edge over Tampa Bay at this point. We've got about 26.4 points per game. Tampa Bay at about 21.3. We're allowing 25.6, but again, Tampa is allowing 26.5. So they're also allowing some points, right? So we're scoring more points, and interestingly enough, we're giving up less points than Tampa Bay is. If you look at it, total yards, we're at about 373, and they're about 381. So they do have an explosive offense as well. And then defensively, unfortunately, in yards allowed, which again, Ken Norton said isn't as big of a deal as stopping teams, we're giving up 436.9 per game. They're giving up about 362 per game. So, once again, I think the numbers, if you just look at the overall numbers and nothing else, and you say, okay, well, we're scoring a little bit more than they are, and we're giving up a little bit less than they are, that's probably the first time that this has happened all season long.
Well, I find it interesting that we're so evenly matched. I think this is a matchup that's going to be exciting. These are the kind of games you like to watch. And as a fan, maybe it makes things a little bit more interesting, a little bit more on the edge. But as fans, we've been used to that this whole season, kind of waiting up and anticipating what's going to happen in a game. And we usually fare well in these type of situations. So that's exciting moving forward. I think the interesting thing is Stacey McGee's being out. Stacey McGee has been playing well in the middle. But I think we got plenty of guys there that we could rotate in. We got Williams, we got Ellis, we got Latham and Ward. So I don't think that's going to be as big as them Gerald McCoy being questionable or being slowed down. So there's a lot of things that we could look at that will be favorable to the Raiders. But again, this is a back-to-back East Coast game, and I know that we've been staying in Florida for the week, which is going to help us out fatigue-wise. But make no mistake about it. I mean, they've been away from home for a while. That could wear on you. You get a little homesick. There's a lot of things going on that you can't be there to take care of. So as long as we're mentally ready, I think this is going to be a great physical matchup, and I think this team's going to be ready. That's one thing that Jack Del Rio has been known for since he's been here, is getting this team ready to go, especially on the road.
Yeah, and once again, as has been, I think, the narrative throughout this season, this should be a shootout. Just looking at the fact that, both teams give up a lot of yards. Both teams allow other teams basically to move up and down the field on them. You've got a very high-powered offense, with the Raiders, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree coming up big. I don't think they've even opened up, the afterburners at this point. This offense is sort of just kind of moving along, taking what the defense has given them, kind of opening it up all across the field, but they haven't really utilized the middle of the field as much with the tight ends or the running backs coming out of the flats. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity for them to kind of do that in preparation for this Denver game. Defensively, I think they're beginning to come around, and this is a good/bad matchup for this particular defense. Once again, you've got big wide receivers, and that plays into the fact that we brought in some big cornerbacks, and we tend to play better against guys that exactly where they are on offense, and that's pretty much what Tampa Bay does. You're not going to get a lot of the guys running and motioning and doing this and doing that and trying to beat you. Jameis Winston wants to drop back and take advantage of wherever the breakdowns are in your defense, and he wants to push the ball down the field. So once again, I think that is going to kind of play into the strength of what this defense is trying to do. This is a much better defense when you have to go against the Blake Bortles, when you have to go against a guy or like I said, a particular football team, like let's say the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco, where they really want to push the ball down the field. It's just a better defense for that than it is for tracking guys across the middle and a bunch of dump off passes and misdirection and things of that nature. So once again, I'm kind of predicting that this is going to be a wide open game. But I think for the first time all season, I think offensively, defensively, and on special teams, the Raiders put together an entire 60-minute game. You heard it here first. I think they put together a 60-minute football game, and we pulled this one out.
And I think it's going to be very interesting what kind of scheme we roll out with. Is it going to look like it did last week with this little 3-4 cover 2 look? I think it'll be key. Like you said, I believe our corners match up well with these wide receivers. It's just it comes down to basically our pass rush. Number one, we got to get to Winston. The guy can move outside the pocket. The guy can run. So we got to contain him. But most importantly, in this game, when you look at what Tampa Bay's been able to do, we have to play well against the run. That's what's going to help these cornerbacks as well from not allowing them to get over the top. So take away the play action, contain Jameis Winston, and these corners should have a shot. I mean, this is what we brought these guys in for, right? To play some of these bigger receivers. Mike Evans has a lot of talent. He has a lot of weapons in his arsenal. We just have to be able to contain Winston inside the pocket and make sure that these little running backs, these little power backs they have, don't get the best of us. So, again, this defense is ready, I think, to take that next step. And this game is huge because we lost at home against Kansas City. Now we're looking at a situation here where these back-to-back East Coast games where we thought we could give up one, we're kind of in a must-win type mode to set ourselves up for Denver the next week.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is big. You never want non-conference games to really be big, but like you said, had we won that game in Kansas City and then came in and beat Jacksonville and continue to go on and win the games in our division, Houston, Buffalo, things of that nature, the ones that are really going to count if you do slide out and you're not going to be, you're not going to win your division. Then, it doesn't matter that you lose to teams like Carolina. It doesn't matter that you lose to teams like Tampa Bay. Or the Falcons, right? But once you start losing those games in your division, all of a sudden you start looking at it like, okay, wait a minute. So let's just say, for example, we don't play well in Tampa Bay and we lose. And then we've got to go and play the Broncos at home where we've been struggling for whatever reason. It doesn't mean we'll struggle as the season goes on, but let's just say, we play them there and we struggle and they are the defending Super Bowl champions and they win. Now you're looking at it, oh my gosh, we were 5-2. Everybody was super excited. Now we're 5-4, at the midway point of the season, and all of a sudden the record starts to get a little bit tarnished. So I'm not saying this is a must-win game, but I am saying had we won that that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, we could kind of look at this game as well. If we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. Again, I look at it like they have got to put together a complete game. Offensively, they've got to put up some points, and you can do it against this particular defense. And defensively, like I said, they have got to get better. This is the type of defense that you want to play. Bigger receivers try to push the ball down the field. If they give, you know where the quarterback's going to be, and it gives enough time for your defensive line to try to create some pressure to go and get the quarterback. Where these guys, given a little bit of time, they can do those types of things. So, we'll see. Like I said, interesting game, but this to me at this point becomes one of those games where you just can't look at it like, if we lose this game, we lose this game. They really need the momentum moving into Denver. And let's face it, they need, if you can only win on the road and you're going to struggle at home, then you need to win on the road every single time. You're going to have to go to Mexico. Absolutely. You're going to have to go to all these different places, and you're going to have to win where you can. And then just hope for whatever reason that you don't get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, because that'll kill you. You literally want to go on the road to all these places.
And most importantly for me too, Pirate, is as much as it's going to help us winning the game. Anytime you win a game, it helps you, right? I mean, we're never going to sell a loss as being not that big of a deal. It's always a big deal when you lose, no matter who you play. But I think we really need to come out of this game healthy. We already got a banged up right side of our offensive line. Now we got Stacey McGee that's dealing with a little aggravating injury. But we're at a point in time where we're gearing up to bring Mario Edwards back, which is going to be huge for this defense. Alden Smith just applied to get back into the league. We'll see how that plays out. We'll have, like I said, the offensive line should start getting healthy. Then we got the Broncos. Then we go into the bye. And then we really begin the stretch where we got to really come together as a complete football team. So I want to come in. I want to dominate for the 4 quarters. I want to pull out a victory, and I want to stay healthy, because I think we come out of this game healthy. It really sets us up against Denver going into the bye to becoming 100%, having some key players come back. And the sky's the limit for this football team. So I know this is going to be an exciting game. They have been all year. I'm geared up. You're geared up. We're ready to get this thing ripping. And don't forget, you guys can check us out here live right after the game, where you guys can call in and give us your thoughts and insight on the matchup this Sunday. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And we come back, we're going to talk to our NFL insider, Louie Tee. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the W2W Review. I am the Knight, joined by the Raider Pirate. All right, so now we're going to get into the other side of the ball, where we're going to talk a little bit about Tampa. And to do that, we're going to bring in our NFL insider, the guy who covers the league like a blanket. Who else could it be but our man, Louie Tee? What's up, Louie Tee?
As always, it's a pleasure, Pirate, Knight. Thank you for having me on the program. All good, man. Let's talk Bucks and Raiders this weekend.
That's right, brother. And what an exciting matchup we think that this is going to be. To get things started, what could you tell us about Tampa Bay? What is some of your, especially offensively, go ahead and tell us a little bit about these running backs and what they've been able to do the last couple of weeks.
I think that's the most fascinating matchup when I look at this game. Is I talked to a lot of Raiders fans after the Jacksonville Jaguars win, and they were excited about how the defense looked. And I tried to temper their expectations for the upcoming game. And I said, you've been here before. This is eerily similar to how a lot of fans felt after the Tennessee win. Held Tennessee to 10 points and give up a ton of yards or forced turnovers. And, the defense wasn't fixed after that game, but a lot of fans felt that way. They thought that was the beginning of the defense turning it around, and I wanted to have them understand that you played the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was expected, that the Raiders would go out, force some turnovers. We talked about that very thing on this program last week, that the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to give you opportunities to force some turnovers, and that they did, and the Raiders took advantage of that. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers team will turn the football over if you press them. The difference, however, over the last 3 weeks has been the implementation of the running game. Early in the season, they were ready to put the offense on their franchise quarterback's shoulders, that being Jameis Winston, and ask him to go out and win football games. And what that ended up doing was facilitating turnovers. He was pressing, he was trying to make things happen, and they got away from the run game a little bit. So they've scaled it back, and what their head coach has done is he's really went out with a mindset of, we're going to run the football, we're going to stick with the run, and we're going to play off of that. And it's been phenomenal for them the last 2 weeks. We saw them pull out an improbable win against Carolina before their bye week. 30 carries for Jacquizz Rodgers in that game, 101 yards. Even more so impressive against San Francisco, who has a very porous run defense, sort of like the Raiders. 26 carries, a career-high 154 yards for Jacquizz Rodgers in that game. So they're going to stay committed to the run. They were down 14-0 in the first quarter of that game, and they did not stop running the football, and that allowed them to get back into the game. So for me, looking at this matchup, the key to the game is going to be stopping the Bucs' rushing attack. If you can make them one-dimensional and force Jameis Winston to beat you, keep in mind, no Vincent Jackson in this game, you're going to have a great shot at getting to Winston and forcing him into some mistakes. But if they're balanced, this could be a long, long afternoon for the Raiders defensively.
Yeah, and looking on the other side of this particular football team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're ranked pretty high in terms of yards. So when we look at defenses, you're going to rank defenses based on the amount of yards that they give up. Oakland obviously ranked way at the bottom. But when you look at this Tampa Bay team, they're ranked number 7 defensively, giving up only 2,104 yards. But when you look at points per game that this Tampa Bay team is giving up, they drop all the way down to 25. The Raider offense, again, has been prolific at some points, but then they've completely stalled. If they're down, they seem to play a lot better. If they're up or they're tied or at the beginning of the game, they tend to have a vanilla-type offense. But what can you tell us defensively about this team? Why is it that Tampa Bay doesn't give up a lot of yards, but then when teams are in position to score, they are giving up a lot of points?
So the NFL is a farce when it comes to ranking teams defensively. I think that whole setup is a joke, because you just mentioned the problem with ranking teams by yardage and not taking into points into consideration, and then not even separating offensive touchdowns given up by your offense who threw a pick six or a fumble recovery. That all gets lumped in with the defense. You gave up those points, even though the defense didn't really give up those points. So with the Buccaneers, if you watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what you will find is that defensively they're aggressive. They will blitz. They will come after your quarterback. They're very sound up front. They have guys that can penetrate, get into the backfield. So defensively, they're not as bad as the points that they give up may indicate. What you have to take into consideration is that they've had a number of turnovers by their offense that has then turned into points. Short fields, those types of things. I mean, I look at the Denver game, there's a pick six in there. You look at the Rams game, there's a fumble recovery for 80-yard, touchdown on a scoop and score fumble. Jameis Winston threw a pick six in that game. Those all get charged to the defense. So those numbers can be misleading. This is a really solid Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that does get after your quarterback. They don't have a guy that scares you necessarily up front, but what they do very well is they will blitz. And they do creative things. They'll send the corner. They'll blitz a safety. They will overload a side. And if you don't pick these things up pre-snap, they will get your quarterback. Last week, Colin Kaepernick, obviously a guy only playing in his second game this season, doesn't read the blitz correctly. They overload the left side, his blind side, and they come scot-free. The corner comes off of the slot, hits him, fumbles the football, big play in the game. Those are the types of things the Buccaneers like to do defensively. So if the Raiders can identify blitz pre-snap, and Derek Carr has done a phenomenal job of doing that this year, they should be able to dissect that Buccaneers secondary and get some big plays potentially. But if they do not pick those things up pre-snap and they're able to get some free runners coming after Derek Carr, again, could be a long day for the Oakland Raiders on the offensive side of the football. I think the key for them, and you mentioned this, they need to be able to get off to a faster start. And the Bucs have done a poor job of getting off to fast starts this season. So if you're the Raiders, you want to jump these guys. Okay, the Bucs have fallen behind in a ton of games this year early, and if you're a good team, that's been a death sentence for the Buccaneers this year. If you're a bad team, they've been able to come back from behind, catch you, and pass you and win the game. So the key for the Raiders would be to get off to a faster start. They've been getting off to slow starts this season, as we saw last week versus Jacksonville. Again, get off to a faster start. If they want to spot you 14 like they did San Francisco, take that 14-point lead and don't look back.
All right, Louie. Well, in saying that, being the fact that this Tampa Bay defense is pretty aggressive, especially when they blitz the opposing offense, how do you think this could really play in? And we talk a lot about the Raiders offense being really vanilla, especially when they're up in games and the game's really not on the line. Musgrave really likes to call wide receiver screens, draw plays. And, a lot of that is really set up to be successful against a blitzing football team. How do you think that maybe the Raiders have a chance here to actually get some of these plays to work against an aggressive defense like Tampa Bay?
Absolutely, and that's how you neutralize the blitz. Is you come with screens and draws and delays and things that will put them on their heels, and back them off a little bit. And if they can have some success with that, that'll be something that will be in the favor of the Raiders. And again, anything that will help you buy time for your quarterback is key in this league. And if they come early on some pressures and you're able to pop a screen or you're able to hit them with a draw and it pops out the other side and you pick up 25, it's going to make them think twice about blitzing later on in the game. So those are obviously ways to exploit the Buccaneers and their aggressive way of their defense. But make no mistake about it, this league is all about matchups. And last week I told you I love the fact that Jalen Ramsey was going to match up with Amari Cooper all game, because that was going to take Cooper out of the game, which he did. Okay, until he got ejected, Cooper was a non-factor in that football game. But that opened up Michael Crabtree, and Michael Crabtree had a huge game. And so this week, there's no star corner. There's no guy that's going to shadow Amari Cooper. They've got a bunch of guys that are all smaller corners. All of their corners are 5'10" or smaller. So you've got an advantage at the receiver position where Crabtree's a 6'2" receiver, Cooper's a 6'1" guy. You've got some opportunities where you could really have some advantages, especially if you can get the football into the red zone. You've got guys that are 6'4", 6'2", 6'1", that have a distinct advantage. Andre Holmes, a big 6'4" receiver, distinct advantage in the red zone. These are smaller corners. If you can get to the red zone, that's where I think the Raiders will see that advantage show up the most in this football game.
Yeah, and the Raiders are one of the best teams in the red zone, as a matter of fact. But let's flip the switch here and let's take a look defensively for the Raiders. Sean Smith was brought in, big cornerback, 6'3", man press guy in Kansas City. He's come here, played off a little bit, doesn't quite have the hips to run and turn, stop and start with some of the faster wide receivers, struggled early on. But this is, in my opinion, this is a good matchup for him. Although, Evans is not your typical big guy. I mean, he's 6'5", 240 pounds, but he runs like a deer. He can get up, high point the ball. But in this case, if you're the Raiders, do you go ahead and take Sean Smith and get him at the line of scrimmage and force these guys into a battle and just sort of put a guy like Reggie Nelson over the top to give him a little bit of help for those jump balls? Or do you try to play your traditional defense knowing that there isn't a Jackson on the other side? Although, and that kid's name, it's not coming to me right now, but he had a pretty decent game against the 49ers as well. Do you expect that this is the type of game that Sean Smith can excel in, or do they really kind of try to umbrella the Buccaneers passing game instead of trying to just do individual matchups like you talked about with Ramsey and Cooper? So in your opinion, is this more of a kind of a fight at the line of scrimmage, or is it more of a kind of bracket this guy all game long and try to take him out and focus on the run game?
Yeah, and the receiver you were referring to is Shepard. He had a really good game last week for Tampa Bay. To me, I wouldn't even mess around with it. I would bracket Mike Evans. I wouldn't even allow him the chance to really impact this game, because that's the one guy that can hurt you. Even though Shepard had a really good game, he's not a guy that's going to scare you. And even if he has a good game, but you stop. Keep in mind, Shepard had a good game last week. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns, and he was the big guy that hurt the 49ers last week. That's the guy that's going to hurt you. Not Shepard, not Humphreys. I even like their tight end Cameron Brate, but those aren't the guys that are going to hurt you. The guy that's going to hurt you in the passing game is Mike Evans. So if I'm the Raiders, this is why Bill Belichick is the best in the business, is because the one thing you do well, he's going to take it away. He's not going to mess around. He's not going to allow you to maybe have an opportunity here or there. He's just going to take that guy completely out of the game. I'm not going to allow you. If I'm playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm not going to allow A.J. Green to beat, because I know that's the one guy that can hurt me. In this particular instance, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans is the one guy that can hurt you in the passing game. So don't allow him to be the difference maker and the X factor in his football game. I would just take him out, because I don't trust Sean Smith. I just don't. If he wants to come up to the line of scrimmage, Mike Evans has no problem beating him off the line of scrimmage. And like you said, and I think you put it very eloquently, he's not your typical big 6'5", plodding wide receiver. This guy can run. He's deceptively fast. And if Sean Smith misses that jam at the line of scrimmage, and Evans, you already said he's 240. He's not a small guy. And he did trim down a little bit. He's more along the lines of 230 now, but he's still physical and can beat him off the line of scrimmage. And once he gets past him, Sean Smith is not going to catch up. So you don't want to put Reggie Nelson in a situation now where he's basically one-on-one with Mike Evans 30 yards down the field, where Winston looks and says, oh, wow, I got my guy one-on-one with a safety because the corner's trailing by 2.5 yards. I'm going to throw this up there and let him go climb the ladder and get the football, because he will. So to me, there's no reason to put yourself in a compromising situation like that. Just play it safe. Keep everything in front of you. The Buccaneers have done a phenomenal job at getting big plays this season. They're a feast or famine offense. When they're not running the football for 150 yards, they're looking for the deep ball. That's how they beat Carolina. They had some big shots last week versus San Francisco. They're a very aggressive offense, and that's why Winston will turn it over, because he's not afraid to take chances. He hasn't taken as many in the past couple of weeks, but he's not afraid to drive it down the field, and he's confident in Mike Evans and his ability to go up and climb the ladder and get the football. So don't allow those opportunities to come available, because Jameis Winston will take those shots down the field and pick up chunk yardage, and that will put you in a tough spot if you're the Oakland Raiders.
All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into our final thoughts. Louie, could you tell us what your prediction for this week's matchup is?
This is going to be a very telling game for the Raiders. And I think it feels like I say this every week. Last week, that was a big win. I know a lot of Raiders fans weren't as excited about how the game was won. I was actually excited for the Raiders, because that was the type of game where you needed to win by 3 scores, and they did. They dominated that game. Could they have scored 40? Could they have scored 50? Sure. They could have scored more points in that game, but they didn't need to. Jacksonville was dead in the water. They blew them out. The game wasn't close. It wasn't a nail-biter. That's what I expected last week. This week, totally different story. I look at this as a matchup where if you're the Raiders, and once again, if you're really serious, and I said this when they played Kansas City, if you're really serious about winning this division, go and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this is a bad matchup for the Raiders because this is one of those teams that won't deviate away from what they want to do, which is run the football. And Kansas City wanted to run, and they did. Jacksonville had a 42-yard run, and they only gave Chris Ivory 5 carries. You're not going to have to worry about them straying away from the run. They're going to run the football in this game. And if the Raiders can't stop the run, they're going to be in for a long afternoon. I look at this as a matchup where the Buccaneers haven't won at home this season. Keep that in mind. They've struggled at home. All their wins have come on the road. This could be an opportunity for them to get their first home win. I don't see the Raiders lighting up this Buccaneers defense. I don't see their run defense showing up against this Buccaneers rush offense like Tampa Bay in this spot to get it done over the Raiders 27-23.
Wow. All right. You just made a lot of our audience really happy.
I'm 2-0 on your show so far. So I've been pretty much spot on thus far. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong and you guys get the win. But right now, I'm hot right now.
So, Louie, tell our fans where they can watch your stuff, social media, all those types of things. Can you give us an idea of where people can go if they want to watch some more of this content?
Oh, absolutely. And once again, guys, it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to bless the will to win. You can find me, Louie Tee, on the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. A lot of great content on my channel. Obviously, I cover, like these guys have eloquently put it, I cover the league, the entire National Football League like a blanket. Content galore. Every week, I cover all the games. I cover all the teams. I break down every primetime matchup. Louie Tee Network is where you want to be, so go ahead, hit that subscription button. Come on over to the Louie Tee Network. Also, I'm on Twitter. If you ever want to know when I'm doing a live feed, I did an impromptu one last night out of nowhere because of the way the Jags game went. You want to subscribe to my channel, but you also want to be linked up to me and follow me on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Turn the notifications on. You'll know exactly when videos are being uploaded and live feeds are being started. Also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. So once again, In the Lab Room on Facebook, In the Lab Room on Twitter, Louie Tee Network on YouTube.
And you'll also find him here, folks, every Friday. He will be here giving us some insight into the game that we have that week. So we appreciate you coming on, Louie, and we appreciate you taking the time to come and share with the Raider fans.
Thank you once again, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's a blast to do it.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Once again, we thank Louie Tee. Got a big game coming up, so let's see how we do. For the night, I am the Raider Pirate, and once again, thank you, Louie Tee, for coming on and spreading the knowledge. We will see you guys next week.
And that's why they call